My name is Aditya Joshi, and my project is a West Side Story.
Awesome. I saw this short last night. Such a fantastic watch. So impactful. It's a short, but it hits you from the start. What is it like creating a project like this?
I find it pretty challenging, honestly, to make a short film, which might sound counterintuitive because most people, myself included, make short films with the goal of moving on eventually to features. But as a writer, I find the short film process be much more challenging because you need to get emotion and action and plot and character and all the things that we want out of movies in a 10-minute package. And it's hard to establish character dynamics and situations and all that in 10 minutes. If you watch a normal movie, the first 10 to 15 minutes of any movie is spent being like, here are the characters, here's where they live, and here's what they're doing. So
Definitely. Even though it's a short, you are very invested in this main character right from the start. What was the process like in casting this, and why did you choose for it to be your co-writer that would take on
yeah.
this role?
Well, that was always part of the plan. Anna Lucembrana, who is my co-writer and partner in many things, the film is based on her experiences as a Puerto Rican theater director who lives in New York, and she's also an actress, she's also a writer, and one at some point we were talking about the play West Side Story, the iconic musical from the 60s, and someone had asked her how she would do West Side Story or like how she would tackle an adaptation of West Side Story from the Puerto Rican perspective. And she was kind of like, I don't know that it's really possible to do that without
Hmm.
commenting on the fact that the musical was not written by or for Puerto Rican people to begin with. And we were like, I wonder if that's a movie. And from the beginning, the plan was always for Anna to play the part. And I think she does it so beautifully and so naturally, in part because she wrote it with me and it was written for her, but also in part because she has lived that experience so deeply. And a lot of the other cast members who are in the film are people that we've worked with in theater. So almost we were building a theater play environment within the world of the film, to make everyone feel very naturally attuned to the kind of play within the movie that we were building.
Definitely. And identity is a huge part of this short. How difficult is it to comment on identity without being preachy? Because it seems so natural in this film.
Well, I wonder if you've ever felt this way. I know I do as a filmmaker. It's the way that we talk about identity in our day-to-day lives because it's just like a fact of our day-to-day lives is not the way that people talk about it in movies.
Mhm.
In movies, people jump on the middle of the screen and they say, "It's so hard to be an immigrant in
Mhm.
this country." Yada. And I feel like we are just we people are for me, my parents are immigrants and a lot of my community is made of first generation, second generation Americans, and we don't
Mhm.
talk about how hard it is to be an immigrant in our everyday lives because we all know we just live life as we can with the situations that we were given. And I think leading with that ethos, with an ethos of speaking to people who understand the experience inherently and making them feel seen and making them feel like these are their conversations that they have about identity, I think is at the forefront because, you know, I think when Anna directs theater, she doesn't walk in and say, as a Puerto Rican
Mhm.
woman, my identity is this. Everything she does is from a place of her experience as a Puerto Rican woman. And so I think Carolina, the main character in the film, lives by that. And obviously, it's a play with a lot of identity specific relevance. So she needs to be like, here is my specific cultural connection to the play. But we didn't want to preach to anyone about what West Side Story is or isn't because we want the film to be effective, even if you don't buy the kind of identity-driven commentary we're doing on the writing of the piece.
Going with that whole identity thing, you create a very tense situation in this, premiering of a play, and then you add the layer of people questioning how authentic they want to be in this play, bringing in their own perspective. Theater is a collaborative process, so how do you balance that? How honest you want to be uh, at a play as opposed to how much liberty you give your actors.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because in this short. We wrote every line, obviously, but we want, I think my ethos as a director and a writer is if the line doesn't feel natural the way I wrote it, then we need to rewrite it so it feels natural. Like naturalism
Mhm.
and relatability and feeling immersed is the most important thing. So I think like, there's a there's a character in the film who pops up for like 2 seconds, and it's as Anna's character is walking down the stairs, and it's this white character,
Mhm.
and he pops in and he's like, "Yo, I've been trying Duolingo. Like, can I?" We had written and just riffed on like 4 or 5 versions of that line, and every rehearsal we tried a different one, and we went with the one that felt like it got the biggest reaction out of
Mhm.
Anna. And I even think that in this take that we use, it's the first time that he uses that line. And so Anna's reaction to yeah, okay, just call me later, tell me about it later is a pretty authentic reaction, we think, to how people might respond to that. And so again, because I don't know if you noticed, but like so many of these takes are so long.
Mhm.
They're 2.5 minutes long, and we're not editing within the take. There's really nowhere for Anna to hide because she's in every aspect of the frame. There's nowhere for the background actors to hide. So it's important that they don't feel unnatural in what they're being asked to do.
Mhm.
In a play like this, it's really, or in a movie about a play like this, it's really important to cast authentically, and we really tried to do that.
So there is this part close to the end, which I don't want to give away to not spoil it, but you add even another layer
Mhm.
of emotion to this. How is it difficult for you to write, that push, that evolution, when it's already going so hard and then you add even more pressure to this and more impact? Is that difficult to write?
I think it's difficult in some ways because you don't want the character to go through it, but also it's important because you want the film to be accessible to people who aren't in the theater or aren't theater directors or don't have a relationship to West Side Story or
Mhm.
aren't Puerto Rican. Like the thing that you're speaking about, everyone has someone like that in their life. Everyone, especially at a certain age, has dealt with that particular emotion
Mhm.
and that thing happening to them. And I think it's really impactful for most of us. I know we like, Anna, it's about a grandmother, and I think Anna and I have very strong relationships with our grandmothers, and um and so when we were thinking about how can we deepen the emotional connectivity of what she's doing, she's doing the play because she wants it to be good, because she wants to represent her people. Why does she want to represent her people? She says it a minute and a half into the film. It's because her grandmother played Maria in an old West Side Story production and was
Mhm.
told that she wasn't Puerto Rican, doing a right Puerto Rican accent, that she wasn't authentic enough when her grandmother is from the island. And so there is that level of why do we make these pieces of work? Like, we make art because we want to express ourselves, because we care about storytelling, because we want to, be on the big screen, whatever your motivation is. But why do you tell the stories that you want to tell is often much more rooted in something deeper. And I think for Anna as a real person and for Carolina, the character that she's playing,
Mhm.
family identity, but more so like ancestry and like, cultural rooting is so much a part of that. And it feels really true to a character who is trying to reclaim, a 50-year-old musical about
Mhm.
people like her grandmother and her grandfather and the elders of her community.
Definitely. And with so much going on in this, it feels like it's a complete story, but at the same time, I wanted to know more. Is there, you said it was difficult to write a short like this, but is there any plans to move this forward and maybe tell more of the story?
Yeah, I mean, we have a feature-length version outlined. It's not written because it's one of those things like if we find the right person to help us, put it together and get the resources to make it, then I think we could write it really quickly. But we have the concept, and I think there is a version of this story that delves much deeper into things like what does it mean to lose yourself
Hmm.
while trying to make art that you think will represent you? There's also a whole ambition to this character that is under the surface in the short, but I think could be really at the forefront of the feature. I don't know if you've seen American Fiction.
Hmm.
That's a big inspiration on the feature. The original West Side Story, obviously, All That Jazz, which is a great Bob Fosse film from the 70s. Like we have a lot of inspirations for Birdman is an obvious inspiration on this film and would be an inspiration on the feature. Like I think we have a really interesting feature. So if anyone's watching this and is interested in the bigger version, you let us know.
And bringing a short like this to Tribeca, what does that mean to you and the production in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a New York production. The film was shot in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Music School, which is a nonprofit that's really focused on bringing music education to kids in the neighborhood. And it has been for, I think, 100 years in Fort Greene. And Anna and I are mostly, I mean, I'm based in New York. Anna's mostly based in New York. She kind of splits time. And all of our cast, most of our crew, Semi and Luis obviously have like strong New York roots. Like, it's just a cast and crew that really feels what it's like to make art in New York and especially a lot of us like what it's like to make theater in New York. And Tribeca is the festival. If you're in New York, it is a festival that most of us who've lived here have attended as fans, have wanted to show work at. Some of us have been there before. Semi and Luis obviously have attended as filmmakers before. And I think for the rest of us, it's an amazing opportunity to premiere at an incredible festival and do it in a way that everyone can come and celebrate. I've been part of films before or shows or whatever that they premiere at a big festival, but that festival is really far from where everyone
Hmm.
lives. And so not everyone gets to go and celebrate the premiere. And what's special about this is we have 3 screenings over 2 weekends. And I think pretty much everyone in the cast and crew who wants to come is going to be able to come.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on this project, and thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to watch it.